Brilliant. Well, it's so lovely to be meeting with you today, Odette. Thank you so much for just making some
Similar.
time.
It's lovely to meet a kindred spirit on a very similar path and doing service. It's
Yeah,
wonderful.
thank you. I
Thank you.
cannot even remember how I stumbled across you, but I do know that your website's really beautiful,
Thank you.
and I can encourage everyone to check you out. You had a little blurb about yourself, which I'm going to read back to you from your book.
Okay, good, great,
One of
wonderful.
your beautiful books,
Thank you.
Guide to Astral, sorry, what is it called? The title of your book? The Astral Planet Guide.
That's it, the Astral Planet Guide.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me what it is.
Yeah. So you wrote, Odette Nightsky is a counselor, educator, writer, and trainer in contemporary shamanism. Your own word.
I don't know where that came from, but anyway.
Yeah. Specializing in sensitivity and safe practices. And
exactly.
I love that, and I'm hoping we can unpack that a bit today.
Yeah.
And is the carrier, soul gardener, and spiritual midwife of these teachings since her teacher passed over and gave her the reins. She has a long history of working with acutely sensitive people, both within and outside the mental health system, who have been affected by abuse, trauma, and spiritual and psychic disturbances. So, yeah, I just thought that was really important for my audience as well, because as you know, I work kind of in that crossroads as well. My history, I think a bit like you mentioned that you've gone through a dark night of the soul, and I certainly did too. And for both of us, it was defined as a mental illness at one point.
Yes.
So I really love the space that we work in, where we kind of bring those two worlds together, the world of mental illness and the world of shamanic or spiritual practices.
Absolutely. And I think we met, I know how we linked up. We were both on the Hearing Voices Network in Australia.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
That's how we
great Facebook page and resource for people, which I probably I'll take a note of it so we can link all of the little resources we mentioned along the way.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd add to that intro? That was from your book.
No, that's pretty much my basic credo is safe practices. And sort of supporting sensitive people in however you deem yourself to be sensitive.
Yes.
Because there's a wide spectrum, just like anything else. And for me, the spectrum goes from sensitive to acutely sensitive. And when we're sensitive, it's kind of daily life sensitivity. And then when it's acute, that's when it can be deemed a mental health issue.
That's such a great definition. That really aligns with what the Hearing Voices approach works with as well. So they're just that zoning in on one particular feature of experiences, which is hearing voices. And they say that, it's on a spectrum. There are many, many people that hear voices that do so without distress. And it's only when it tips over into distress or acute distress that, they seek help, and then quite often the diagnosis will follow.
Exactly. So, the normality that's why the Hearing Voices Network is so wonderful, because you see other people's stories and you realize, wow, I'm not the only one that heard voices. Wow, I'm not the only one that hears really odd, things, not just voices, but scratches or strange sounds. But, it's good because it's kind of like a tribe, and it includes people without labeling them, which I really love.
Absolutely, yeah. There's so much scope to explore different worldviews and different perspectives and just different explanatory frameworks, which I I sometimes call them.
And from different cultures, which I find fascinating, how different cultures see things, see hearing voices, how they experience them to be.
Absolutely, which is a beautiful segue into like the meat of our conversation today, which is this idea of shamanism being one worldview. Obviously it's a global, it's a word that is an umbrella word for many, many practices around the globe. But I'm curious if you would like to define what you think of as shamanism, maybe even traditionally and contemporary, because I know it's changed over time.
Yeah, well, for me, the traditional is, that classic view of the shaman, the indigenous shaman, in a traditional mode, in a traditional, back in Mongolia, Siberia, on the land, in the hut, doing it in a traditional fashion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And those people are around the planet, you know, even
Mm-hmm.
wearing modern outfits. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they do things in a very traditional fashion. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To me, what I found, and I have been with both traditional shamans as well, with healings with traditional shamans. And what I find in contemporary is, because our mind likes to know a lot, right? Our ego loves to know stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it loves to understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
In traditional shamanism, for me, like I would say, for example, have a traditional shaman do a healing on me, and I'd feel great, but I don't know what happened. And I wasn't
Yeah.
part of the experience, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my curious modern mind, oh, so what went on there? You know, what happened there, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when I learned contemporary shamanism, basically I was guided, and I had somebody right next to me who, you know, who was there holding my hand in the process, but I was seeing everything. I was experiencing everything. I was reclaiming what was lost. Yeah. And I was the one that, when I came back with all that I'd reclaimed, I got the whole picture, and
Mm-hmm.
that I could integrate in you know, all aspects of my psyche. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, the knowing, although I know that some people say the knowing's not important, for me the knowing was very important to understand what the heck was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I needed the insight and the understanding. So for me, contemporary shaman has, in a way, much more of that. It serves that part of our consciousness that wants to see the adventure, that wants
Mm-hmm.
to be responsible for our own healing. Yeah.
Oh,
It's much
that's
more self
mm,
journey
yeah.
oriented. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I love that. And it speaks to the empowerment that I think so many of us are needing,
That's it.
to feel like we're agents of our own reality, that we get to consciously co-create our reality the way we want it.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so, yeah, perhaps that's one of the features of the modern contemporary shamanism. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, I
Um,
think just to example, I
mm,
had one client who came to me, and she went to a traditional shaman, yeah, a traditional indigenous shaman
mhm,
that did wonderful healings on her, but then it didn't last,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And she would then be confronted with spirits or whatever, and she didn't know how to navigate when she wasn't around him.
yes, yeah.
So she came to me, she said, I need to know how to navigate this stuff that comes at me in my daily life.
Mm,
And
mhm,
so it was, this is what she needed,
mm,
you know, and she could
mm,
have them both. That's the beauty. She could go to the traditional
yes.
shamanism and get the healing,
Mhm.
and then come home and use the shamanic skills I teach her for her daily life.
Yes, yes. Yes, how perfect. That's a beautiful way of putting it as well. It sort of speaks to my own journey too there. I've had healings from shamanic practitioners, which was so powerful, like pivotal. And at the time, I really didn't, I know I couldn't have done that myself. I
Yeah,
just really needed that guide. But then a bit like your person that you're referring to, I then went and almost self-taught, right? Started
that's
to
it.
understand these realms that I was working with,
Yeah.
because I think I guess for me, a difference between traditional shamanism and contemporary shamanism is that the world is changing, human
Yeah.
consciousness is changing. And in the past, perhaps it just wasn't needed, that wise person in the village could hold that healing ability without everybody. And maybe even those people in the village were more connected to nature, more connected to their soul, more connected to the cosmos than we are today as modern
Yes, because
people.
we're way more disconnected.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
perhaps that's
Absolutely.
part of the problem and part of the reason why we need a different version of shamanism, which actually teaches us how literally to connect. Perhaps that
Exactly.
connection was very innate in those people that lived in the past. So I'm very cautious with the word shaman in general, though, and that's one reason why I loved connecting with you, is because you have you bravely use the word in your practice. Personally, I find it I know you don't necessarily call yourself a shaman, maybe a shamanic practitioner. Is that correct?
Yeah.
There's a bit of a difference there.
I kind of classify as I walk the path of the shaman.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
walking the path to understand the medicine, to learn the medicine, because for me, shamanism is about experience. You learn
Yeah.
by experience. You don't learn by theory. Like
Yeah.
somebody goes to, learn psychology, they learn mainly by theory. In shamanism, you learn via experience primarily, and the experience, will teach you. So for me, it was like I couldn't call myself a traditional shaman, right? It's I am indigenous to a certain landscape. If I go back in my ancestry and stuff, we all are indigenous to the world in some place, right? But the point is that I cannot claim that I'm a lineage, right? On a bloodline, right? And I am not indigenous to this landscape, right? So for me, it's like I'm very much a contemporary shaman. I take that medicine with great respect of the traditional shamans, with absolute respect of what they have offered and brought up for us to utilize, to connect with the earth, to reclaim ourselves. But I do it in a modern day fashion because we're in, like people living in concrete buildings now. How do they access being connected if they're in a concrete building? They maybe don't have the money to go and sit with a shaman in a lovely workshop in the Andes. Maybe they don't have that kind of money. Yeah. So to me, it's like, well, you're sitting in concrete. What can we do while you're sitting in a concrete building? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Working with what we've got. Exactly.
Working with
and the changing times that we live in, which I was myself on a path of traditional shamanism. I was born in Africa, South Africa. So I did begin working, and I did a year mentorship under some sangomas who are African shamans. So I got a really I feel like I could only call it a peek, even, a little glimpse into the extremely intense process that it takes to create a sangoma in that culture. And I think this is true of many of the traditional shamanic initiations, that they were rigorous, to say the least, brutal. People often died in the experiences. They were, one reason why I think there's a correlation between psychosis and shamanism is that the shaman was brought to the brink of their own consciousness, stood on the edge of madness, and then came back with the goodies, right? Came back with the gifts. But not everybody, not everybody survived that journey.
Nope.
Right. Absolutely. And that disintegration of ego that takes place through the shamanic initiations. Oh, yes. Some goosebumps. It's really, really full on.
It is. It's absolutely, I think that's why I'm a big advocate on gentleness is the way to go, because I've seen so much harm done. As in re-traumatizing people. And I think in the traditional world, that's absolutely understandable, that rite of passage. Absolutely understandable. For a lot of us, my rite of passage was madness. That was my rite of passage. And it was absolutely, abjectly terrifying. I wouldn't want to wish it on anybody, to be honest, right? And for me, what I learned, probably the biggest thing I learned is, as a modern woman, I'd spend a lot of my life punishing myself and being hard on myself. And I realized I was blocking myself because I was punishing myself and being hard on myself. And to me, the way I do shamanism, it should involve laughter, enjoyment, love, connection, beautiful reclaimings. It doesn't always have to be brutal. Our lives are brutal enough sometimes. Why do you have to make it so damn brutal? I'm over the brutal. I'm much more into the gentle way of coming home to self.
Yes. And again, this you're speaking, I think, to the change of consciousness on the planet, the way that we have to work with ourselves these days, because trauma is a big problem right now on this planet.
It is.
So many of us are highly traumatized from our societies, our family upbringing, the
Exactly.
systems that we live in, the concrete that you're talking about
The
before,
concrete,
right?
yeah,
This
exactly.
disconnection from nature, like everywhere you look, there's environmental, psychological, emotional, and physical stressors that are contributing to that chronic trauma. And
Absolutely.
so when you have someone who's already undergone great amounts of trauma, which the sensitive souls on the planet, those often labeled with mental illness, they're all in that basket. They're all highly sensitive people. So yeah, the brutal way, I think, can be extremely damaging.
And strangely, a lot of my clients come to me from being traumatized by, let's call so-called shamans.
Really? Yeah.
They come to me because they have done an ayahuasca journey and they haven't come home properly. They come to me because they have been actually sexually abused by named shamans. So I've had a lot, I mean, I get a lot of clients from cults and abuse and both sort of, you know, the mental health abuse, because that can be quite abusive as well, you know, depending on what happens to them when they get, you know, taken into clinics and things like that, or, you know, but on the alternative side as well. I get a lot of people who have been really rocked on the alternative side. So there's a lot of, as you say, there's a lot of trauma, but there's also a lot of trauma of people going to help and being re-traumatized.
Yes.
So that's where I want to stop that story.
Yeah. Which is where you conceived of your I guess your philosophy of safe and sensitive.
Exactly.
Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, exactly. Because I also went to different practitioners, you know, in search, like everybody does. It's like, oh, please help me, fix me, you know, I don't like this. I don't want to be like this anymore. And I mean, I have some stories that we can share later down the track. But I've had some stories where you know, I was taken advantage of in many different ways. And fortunately, I had something inside me that stands up and says, get out. Fortunately, you know, unlike a lot of people who stay in a bit too long and get very burnt. But there is great risk of practitioners thinking that they are this gifted being and not doing their own personal work enough to check their own crap at the door. Yeah. But they can be of service.
Yeah. Okay, that's wonderful. I'm glad we're touching on this because it did pop in my head as soon as we started this conversation. I was thinking we must talk about the dangers. You know, and this is one of the dangers, is that we can, in our quest for, I guess, release from pain. I mean, this is why we go to these people. I know for myself, I was probably calling it, I wanted enlightenment. I wanted spiritual, somehow, some sort of a spiritual bliss state. But really what I was doing was trying to escape my pain. In hindsight, I look back. So yeah, that can lead us to all sorts of teachers, gurus, and it isn't just shamanic, it's also religious, you know, and it's in the mental health world. I think the common denominator of all of those things is the giving away of power, right? The giving away of personal power.
Absolutely, because as you were talking about, you know, your want of like enlightenment, mine was to feel safe on the inside. Because I couldn't feel safe. It's like I'll ask a question. I ask a question to many people, and whoever's listening to this, I ask this question to you as well. It's like, well, what makes you feel safe, right? When you think about that, most people's answers are everything outside themselves. Oh, my bed, my home, my partner, my dog. You know, when I'm cozied up, reading a book, all those things. And then I'll say, but what makes you feel safe inside? And then I get quite a giant pregnant pause because generally they can't relate to what feels safe inside. And for me, that's what I was searching for. I did not feel safe on the inside. I felt like everything was invading me. and I had no me left. And it wasn't
Yes.
my ego that was desperate. It was like I had no sense of authentic self in any way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I had lost me, as you say, give your power away. I had
Mm,
lost my sense of spirit,
yes.
and I was on the hunt to reclaim it. That's why soul retrieval for me is so relevant, because it's about reclaiming what's lost.
Oh, soul retrieval. Okay. Can we unpack that a little? Because I don't know why, but I've always, before I understood a lot about shamanism, I was really scared of that phrase. Like it
Mm.
sounded really scary, right? This idea that part of your, this is how I imagined it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just speaking here because there might be people watching this that
Yeah,
also feel this
sure,
way.
sure, sure.
That part of my soul somehow got kidnapped, taken away, and I can never get it back. Like, where is it? It's out there in the energetic ether.
Yeah.
Yeah, so could you speak, could you
Yeah,
explain
in
that
one way you're
term?
right. The word soul is yeah, it's a bit of a dubious word to use in a way. So I can just give you from my perspective how I see it, right?
Yes, please.
It's like when we experience trauma in life, like let's take an example, you're a 5-year-old girl, yeah, you've been abused, right? In that moment of abuse as a 5-year-old girl, you're not coping with that abuse. And so you're so overwhelmed to save yourself, yeah, because basically the body only knows to protect itself. It doesn't know anything else. That's what the body does. I'm just going to protect you. That's why I'll run, I'll flee, I'll do whatever, I'll freeze, I'll do whatever is protect you. So when that abuse happens is we split. It's like we try and get out of body, so because we don't want to be there. Yeah, we'll do anything to get out of this situation. So what happens is we kind of fragment in a way, right? But we don't like completely and utterly fragment, right? We just, it's like a bit of our aura rips a hole, yeah? And we've got a gap in our psyche, right? So when we do soul retrieval, which I actually weirdly find the most enjoyable journey work to do, weirdly, right? So basically how I set it up is we first build safety within sanctuary, safe space inside. And then we connect with all the animals that are going to help us, all our power animals. And then we go in search of lost fragments within our psyche. Yeah. And then we go to memories where we split off, right? And within that memory where we split off, there's an aspect of us that isn't aligned properly. Yeah. It's still back in the memory, right? So we bring this aligned part, we return it, clean it, reclaim it, and then we do whatever we need to do to that memory. Yeah. We clean it up, basically. We clean that memory up. If we think there's an abuser we need to sort out, we do that all in that realm. But the beautiful thing is, if you're afraid, if you're going, I don't want to go to that memory. Yeah. I don't want to go back there. That's why we have the animal medicine. They're the best trackers of all. They go in and reclaim.
Oh,
Yeah.
how
They
beautiful.
reclaim
Yeah,
those lost
yeah,
fragments for us.
yeah,
So we don't re-traumatize anything. Yeah.
yeah.
We get
Okay.
to actually acknowledge from a distance there's a part of us that actually split off in our memory due to trauma. And with the animal medicine's help, they will bring it back to us in safe realm. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
And then we'll clean it off because we don't want to carry the debris of that memory, right?
Yes.
The wounding debris. We'll clean it off under a waterfall or whatever. And then we slowly start to integrate it, right? And one of the beautiful phrases that I love hearing, and I hear it quite often, is, the person will be slowly integrating. They go, I've never felt so full in my entire life. I've always felt empty. Yeah. So there's a sense of you're realigning. Yeah. You're coming back to your authentic self. So it's
Yes.
actually a really beautiful experience mostly. The
Yeah.
crying usually comes out of reclaiming.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first one I did when I was in my training in England, the first one I did, I cried for 3 hours straight because I was so damn happy to be realigned. Yeah.
Yeah.
The weeping wasn't, oh, the pain. The weeping was, I missed you so much. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And
Mm.
that's like reclaiming, you know,
Mm.
aspects of the inner child. So it's parts of your psyche that are kind of lost in the ethers, and you're
Yeah.
just grabbing them back. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, that's a beautiful that whole explanation. Thank you, because that was very clear to me. And it's a relief as well. Like I felt relief in my body.
Yeah.
Because it's not all like, I don't know, inaccessibly weird, esoteric.
No.
And the reason I say that is because it's very aligned, just using different language, but
Yeah.
very aligned to embodied processing, which is the therapy modality that
Exactly.
I'm trained in.
Exactly.
And also reminds me of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is a modern version of going back into your memories and reprogramming them through, you know, years ago. And I just did this again. Self-guided healing is sometimes the best healing, is the best healing one can do, right?
Yeah.
Somehow got led to this book on NLP. It taught me this method of like going back into trauma memory and bringing in a white rabbit. Now, there's the totem animal, right?
Yep.
My little white rabbit, for my little 5-year-old child. And then I manifested it in the outer realm by actually buying a little white rabbit.
Oh,
And
sweet.
I've got a bit of a collection now of white rabbits, you know, as a
Beautiful.
result. So that was a technique from NLP.
Yeah.
And embodied
I would clarify it as not, sure, just correct
yeah,
that. For
please
me,
do
it's
tease it
not
out.
reprogramming it,
Yeah.
because I'm not going to, the memory is, the wound is what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I'm going to clean it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So my way of doing it is I'm going to clean up the mess. So say I go into a room where the incident happened, right? Firstly, I'm going to get, you know, we're going to get the animal. See, this is what animals are good for. The better at seeing, the better at smelling. They have all these instincts that we don't have, that they can pick up on things that we can't see, right? So basically, if it's a room, the animal will go in, they will find it. Like it can represent an inanimate object. Like sometimes it can be like somebody said, "Oh, it's a carpet," and I'm like, "Oh, wow, what's it? Yourself is in a carpet." But the abuse happened on the carpet, so it made perfect sense, right?
Sure.
So when we get all those fragments out of that place and surrounding that place anywhere else, right? Then what we do is I say, "So what do you want to do with the space?" And they go, "I don't want to ever see that house again." Right? Okay. You don't want to see that house. What would you like to do to the house? If you could use any element, any fire, air, earth, what would you do? And they go, "I want to burn it, or I want to send in a cyclone or a hurricane." I'm like, okay, let's do that, right? And so we clear the debris, we clear the memory, so the memory isn't stuck in the psyche to return to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
no,
more
that
like
makes
clean
sense.
it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And embodied processing, you know, speaking of language, because there's different words we can use for all of this, they refer, or we refer to these soul fragments as orphaned parts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but a very, very similar process. The first thing we do is we work with safety resourcing.
Yeah.
We find safety in the body.
Exactly.
Which is similar to your inner sanctuary idea.
Yeah.
And you can do that through feeling safe,
Yeah.
you know, really cultivating just that feeling, because not everybody's visual.
No, not at all.
But for the visual folks, you know, you can go to town, right? You can create this whole fantastical...
You can go to town. But funnily enough, a lot of people that come to me, I mean, generally are visual people, but a couple of them are much more, they sense first and then they see. So then we follow the sense first, what you sense. Yeah, so you can still, like a lot of people can sense something. They can sense a tree. They don't have to see it, but they know it. Yeah. So you can work with whatever kind of ability you have.
Yes, exactly. There's always a way for
there's always a
us
way
to connect to the body and the body's intelligence. That's another principle of embodied processing, which is that the subconscious and the memories are all held in the body. You know, the body is like our library of all that's happened to us. And yeah, we need to create a good connection to that part of ourselves. The mind comes on board as providing imagery and symbols
Yeah.
and messages that link in with those memories. Embodied processing has perhaps more of an emphasis on actually feeling the emotion connected to the memory than perhaps your practice does.
Yeah.
That's maybe one way that it slightly differs. But yeah, the journey is the
In trauma
same.
work, I mean, I kind of blend shamanism with cellular trauma work as well. Yeah. So it's like when you're talking about the body, there's an exercise that you basically talk to the body consciousness. So you talk to the mind consciousness, you know, and you talk to the spirit consciousness and ask them how, you know, how they feel about each other or what they think of a situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I always love with the body consciousness. It's just like our job is to protect you. Yeah, that is our primary job, to protect you. Yeah.
Yes,
Whatever
yeah.
we do, even though you might think it's crazy, we do it to protect you.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is quite beautiful, really.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah, it
it's
is.
like that's
Yeah.
when you say we hold things in the body. We do, and our body's there to protect us. So it will remove a memory. Yeah, like in abuse, you know, like you know, for a lot of people, they don't remember their abuse. Yeah, they have a massive gap in their memory, and that was actually done to protect them. Yeah, by the body consciousness to protect them. Yeah.
And that, you know, I'm tuning into the hope of your message here, and you know, I really hope that people that are watching this can take this away as a gift, that hope. Because I remember years ago, before I really started my trauma work, that feeling of haunting despair that I was never going to be able to heal, to fully clean up that word you were talking about, clean up that mess that was seemed to be my history and my feelings about it, you know. And I spent years running away from it, away from that mess. And yeah, there was part of me that was really frightened that I could never be healed, that I would be permanently broken.
And I think all of us who have hit that point have felt that way. Yeah. When I was in my dark night of the soul, and I isolated myself massively, I pulled away from humanity as much as humanly possible because I didn't have a sense of space, right, inside myself. And I thought, well, this is it. This is the hell I'm in. Yeah. But I think there was just, I'm very grateful that there was that bit of insight in me that's going, there's something else about this that I'm just not getting. Yeah. And that curiosity saved me. Yeah. I would say that one of my greatest gifts is I've always been curious. Yeah. And even in the dark times, I'm still curious. You know, no matter how damn it gets, it's like, hang on, what is this? I'm still curious. And I think that curious is my hope. Yeah. That's what kept me going. That's what kept me writing, exploring, you know, writing the books that I've written. Is damn curiosity is like, wow, it's much more deeper than I thought. Yeah. It's not just a mental aberration happening. This is like a soul spiritual experience happening. And I was looking for somebody to help me.
Yes.
I found no one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did find people for my body. Like I found very good Chinese practitioners, and I recommend them because they understand how the body mind works or doesn't work together. Yeah. But I didn't find anybody to help me to say, actually, what you're going through is, I'm with you. You know,
Yes.
I'm with you. You're not mad. I'm with you. Yeah. So for me, it was like, we need more. We need more of these people. We need more safe places for people to land in their trauma. Yeah.
Yes. And practitioners
not to be labeled.
Yes, exactly. And practitioners that will hold space for you to really heal yourself, right? As I believe it, the work of the healer or the shaman is there's something within our energetic fields that contains the solution to the problem of the person in front of us, but it's just something we are. It's not something we even have to do, right?
No, exactly.
And that activation that happens when you're with another person who's journeyed through it, the classic wounded healer archetype, is very powerful in and of itself. And as long as that practitioner doesn't fall into the traps of the ego, and like you said before, wanting to be some kind of a savior or feeling like they're exactly, then the process ultimately will be one of deep empowerment for the person. Because I'm like you, I pretty much figured this out for myself. And again, there's hope in that message that I would like people to hear. Is that even though like neither you nor I had a shaman around us, or you know, I was the same as you. I stumbled along for 3 months in an intense psychosis, unmedicated, knowing it was a spiritual experience. Like deep down knowing that, but there was no one there to hold space for that.
No, there was no guidance. There was no guidance. And
no,
I just want to say what you're talking about reminds me of part of my research, because I was pretty obsessed with the research, right?
Yes.
Part of my research, I came across this term called catechismo. It begins with a K. And in South America, many years ago, they found that because they had respect for the shamans and, you know, those that would work, because South America does respect its shamans. What they did was, when people were very unwell and showing signs of what was deemed as mental illness, they would be put into a clinic, but within that clinic, they would have a whole array of different services for that one person in that clinic. So they would have the standard psychiatric model, but they would also have shamans, psychics, masseuse, mediums, you know, the whole shebang in there, right?
Fantastic.
Acupuncturist, you know, right? So they basically had a team to actually look at the person and see on every avenue of that person, where were their needs needing met, right? So the body people would look at what the body is not getting, that it's not in alignment. The mind people would look at the mind people. The spirit people would deal with, be that possession, be that, you know, entities, be that lost fragment. It was a holistic way of helping somebody. And then they'd have people, not those people, there being present with them, holding space for them, because holding space for somebody who's going through a hard night is very exhausting. You need shift workers, you know, you can't do it all on your own. So it was this great team effort, which to me is what I would like to see as the future. Is a team effort to support people. Because not one person can see everything.
No.
No,
what a beautiful vision.
I know, wouldn't it be lovely?
Yes, well, yeah.
Well, you're doing a bit of what you're walking towards, a little bit of that. With your sanctuary concept.
Yes, I've got a respite coming up shortly, which is my offering of what I would have liked when I was going through my stuff. Although it's not set up for people going through the acute phase, that intense dark night of the soul period where you know, it's very, very intense, and people can't sleep, and you know, you can get very spooked by all of your thoughts and fears are coming up and all that sort of thing. This is more of a integration phase, so it's for people who've gone through that, and perhaps for whatever reason, and you will have seen this, I'm sure, with people you've met, they might have had this experience of psychosis or some sort of psycho-spiritual crisis 20 years ago. Right.
And they haven't made sense of it.
They never made sense of it. Exactly. And it kind of haunts you. It's sort of in the back of your mind going, what was that? You know, and surely, so I'd like to offer people space to retrieve the gifts from that experience.
Beautiful.
You know, so that's what I'm doing now. It feels like more gentle, perhaps. I can work towards, you know, that holistic model of care for acute distress. I hope that it does come in our near future. And in the meantime, just like you, I just keep working away at it. I also really want to point out your book, because your book is just such a fantastic resource. And, you know, as I was reading it, I was highlighting little things in there. It's not a long, big book to read. You know, it literally took me an hour.
Which one were you? Which one are you referring to?
Astral Planet Guide.
Yeah, the Astral Planet Guide.
Now, I'm interested. I mean, you've also written other books. You've written a book about your story, which was like a fictionalized account, wasn't it, of your?
No, I've written the last one is the novel Voices Within, which is kind of looking at this story from this perspective, basically. Yeah, it's a story of a young woman in Australia who hears voices, and it leads back to 16th century Scotland and the witches' time. So it's a dark night of the soul journey, but it's got a lot of hints in it. It's got a lot of tips in it. It's got a lot of ways that you can have a different perspective of what madness might look like. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But it's a story ultimately of a resilience, and it's got a good ending. It's not a sad ending. It's a
beautiful.
Yeah. And
Okay,
the other,
yeah.
so that's that one. The first one I wrote was The Bridge Between Two Worlds, a shaman's view of schizophrenia and acute sensitivity. And that was my book that Spirit basically kept nudging me during my state of unwellness that I should write, because I kept looking for a book and I couldn't find it. And they were like, well, you should write it. I'm going, no, I should. What, me? And hello, I did. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So I'll have to read that one. I'm definitely going to bookmark that because it sounds.
Yeah, I think you'd like that one. I think you'd relate, especially the healing place at the end, which is I think what you're creating already, you know, for people. So I think that'd be quite apt. But yeah, I think writing's a great tool because in a way I think telling your story is very important. And you know, as they call in narrative therapy, there is great power in telling your story, and not telling your story to please others, telling your authentic story.
Yeah. Yes. And that principle is highlighted in the Astral Planet Guide, which I know I keep coming back to, but the reason I come back to it is because it's for those people who don't love to immerse themselves in a big, long book. This is just nice and quick. You know, it's an hour of your time. It's beautifully illustrated. And the principles in it, like I was like, yes, 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 every time I read another chapter. You know, some things that stood out were things like this idea of connection, how important that is, connecting to ourselves and also connecting to nature, and remembering that I've written a little quote of yours. Nature has an all-encompassing embrace if you allow it.
And that came from me being in a haunted house, being absolutely freaked out and walking into nature and thinking this is the only place where I wasn't invaded.
Yeah.
I mean, there were mosquitoes and flies, but you know, not psychically invaded.
Yes, and I think, you know, that for the modern person, so disconnected from nature in a way that our ancestors possibly weren't. Refinding our way or rewilding ourselves is another term.
Beautiful.
One of my sangomas that I follow speaks about rewilding. So, you know, going on that journey to reconnect to it's not just an intellectual exercise of taking your shoes off and putting your bare feet on the ground. It's actually tuning in to that relationship between your body and the earth, and to that, you know, finding your way to that all-encompassing embrace.
And, you know, the whole idea is that if you're in a concrete building, and there's not much landscape around, that within shamanism, because it's a multi-dimensional universe inside you, you can, and that's, you know, how I base the sanctuary, is that's where you can connect. You can always connect somewhere inside, even if you can't connect outside.
Yes, true. Or through an image, you know, a picture or a feather or anything that comes from nature.
Exactly, like I'm looking at the river behind you, and I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at the river. I'm going, isn't that lush? Yeah.
Yes. Yes, exactly. It's very activating, and remembering how that feels in our body. So yeah, look, and there's just so many other things in there. So I highly recommend it for people to check out.
Thank you. The Astral Travel Guide was basically created because I spent a lot of time reading the Lonely Planet Guide, traveling the world. And I thought, hang on a minute, there should be maybe one for a spirit. So that was my idea of kind of turning it into a traveler's guide for, you know, the journey world.
Yes, and not making it a scary thing. Like it's presented in such a way that, you know, you are in control of your journey. It reminds people
Absolutely.
that, you know, like in the astral world, yes, there are some entities or beings that will present as false light, that will pretend, that will try and trick you, just like in a dream.
Yeah,
It's just like the dreamscape, right? You can
exactly.
get all tangled up in a fear story in your dreams. The same thing can happen if you're journeying, but you present it in such a way as to empower people to realize, oh, you get to choose. If you don't like
Exactly.
what's unfolding in this journey,
Yeah.
you get to take your power back.
And that's exactly what I say to clients if we're about to go do a soul retrieval or something that, you know, they've got a bit of anticipation about. I say, this whole thing is your choice.
Yeah.
You know, you can at any time say, I don't want to go ahead. I said, mainly because your choice was taken away in the abuse, right? So we're re-empowering you to have choice, to choose whether you want to go ahead or not. And I would say 100% of the time, everyone goes ahead because they feel safe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, which is why safety is that critical first component. It's building that in. And
I've had people say, why do you call shamanism safe? It shouldn't be safe. It's all about risk. And my answer to that is, if you jump out of a plane at 40,000 feet, like I did when I turned 50, strapped to a strong man with a parachute. Yeah. I said, I want to jump and it's going to still be a risk, but I'm going to have my parachute on me. Yeah. I'm going to be safe within the risk. And that's all I'm saying. Safe practices within the risk.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot of analogies I can think of, like, as well as, that's a beautiful one. And also walking through a forest, you know, your GPS or your map is your safety, right? Your ability to know where you are in time and space, and to come back to that center. So no matter how far you travel in your inner world, that you can always go back. It's not to be a feared place. And in fact, I think you mentioned it in the book, you know, every journey you learn so much about yourself. As another story unfolds.
And that's it. And it adds to your own personal story, which is yours. So you can say, I went there, I saw that, I merged with that. And especially in animal medicine, when we journey for animal medicine, the joy of seeing the person connect with that animal, and you can actually see their body start to change and shift, and it's just delicious to watch and to be, you know, witness to. It's an absolute joy.
So good. Well, it's been an absolute joy talking to you too. I don't want to perhaps we can kind of end it there, because I don't want the video to go on too long.
It's great.
Maybe we can connect again and do, you know, another deeper chat on any of these topics.
I would love to chat with you again. It's an absolute pleasure to find a kindred soul in our same country on the same landscape. Yay!
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And how do people find you, Odette, if they're interested in your books or maybe one-on-one? Do you offer one-on-one work?
Absolutely. I do counselings and trainings one-on-one, and all the books and everything is at www.contemporaryshaman.net.
Beautiful. And I'll put that link below as well.
Beautiful.
Where are you based in Australia? Which state?
I'm in Australia, but I'm international. So find me online anywhere in the world.
So you're happy to do online. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, I know that your services are much needed, and your beautiful, and I want to say responsible attitude as well to this work. It's wonderful.
Well, it's wonderful. What you're doing is wonderful, and I really hope, you know, you find people coming to what you're offering, because it's incredibly needed. And it's wonderful that they can get funded by NDIS if they wanted to, which is just brilliant. You've made it very accessible.
Yeah. Thank you for your best wishes there. It's going to be a big journey for me as well, but I'm very much looking forward to stepping into that service. Great. So all right, well,
it's an absolute pleasure to chat to you and the beautiful forest behind you.
All right, I'll just turn off the recording now.